Switzerland. From frozen lakes to snow-covered peaks and high adrenaline sports, winter in Switzerland is a time of wonder. Follow us on our journey as we experience the thrill of winter in the Alps. This travel documentary was made possible by Giardino Mountain and supported by St. Moritz Engadin and Pontresina Bergsteigerschule. Situated in Central Europe, Switzerland is a fiercely independent nation split into 26 cantons. For our winter adventure we picked the canton of Graubünden, and more specifically the Engadin, a 1,800 meter high alpine valley known for its stunning scenery. Back in 1864, it was here, in the town of St. Moritz, that a Swiss hotelier convinced his affluent British guests to stay in the Engadin throughout the winter. Unsurprisingly, the visitors preferred the sunny alpine climate over the miserable British weather, and thus winter holidays in the Swiss Alps were born. Following in their footsteps, we picked St. Moritz as the base for our winter adventure, checking into Giardino Mountain for 10 days. As guests of this laid-back 5-star hotel, we stayed in a traditional Engadin house. The main building of the hotel was once a boarding school for girls. Today, it is a great base for exploring everything the Engadin has to offer. Visiting Lake St. Moritz in the early morning of our first day, we witnessed the sun illuminating the mountains, while wafts of fog scenically danced over the frozen lake. Similarly, all the other lakes in the Engadin freeze in winter, creating huge playgrounds for winter sports activities including cross-country skiing and hiking. Framed by stunningly beautiful peaks, the frozen lakes are part of a stupendous mountain scenery, which is blessed with more than 300 days of sunshine a year. To get our bearings, we started out by exploring the valley with our expedition vehicle. A single road closely hugs the shoreline of the Engadin's 4 major lakes, winding its way through the valley until arriving in the settlement of Maloja. Sitting on the southeastern shore of Lake Sils, Maloja marks the southern end of the Engadin. Towering above the village, the Belvedere Tower is a scenic landmark in a mesmerizingly beautiful landscape. Just past the village, the road abruptly drops down the steep Maloja Pass, connecting the Engadin with another valley known as Bergel. Covering an elevation difference of around 350 meters in less than 3 kilometers, the Maloja Pass is a must-do for any road trip fan visiting the region. Most striking are the 15 narrow switchbacks of the road that require a lot of concentration when driving down. In total, the road drops 1,100 meters from the pass until arriving at the Italian border 20 kilometers later. As a result of this change in elevation, the landscape transforms significantly, with snow and ice giving way to sunny pastures. Just before arriving at the border, we turned off the main road and drove up a narrow mountain trail towards the village of Soglio. Set on a sunny mountain terrace, the charming little settlement was named the most beautiful village of Switzerland in 2015. Strolling through the alleyways, we soon started to agree with that decision. Of course, we weren't the only ones mesmerized by the enchanting scenery. Around 125 years before us, gifted painter Giovanni Segantini captured exactly this mountain landscape on canvas. After having made a name for himself with his innovative painting style, He and his family moved to the Engadin in 1894. Similar to us, Segantini was deeply moved by how the mountains are continuously shaped by light.
Dieses Licht ist einfach ganz, ganz speziell, auch im Winter. Im Winter haben wir zwar nur diese zwei Farben, weiß und blau, aber im Sommer haben wir noch das Grün der Welt, auch wenn ihr das jetzt sieht, das anschaut. Und dann diese dunkel blau-grün-türkisen Seen im Sommer. Halt, es ist ganz, ganz intensiv, weil die Luft hier so trocken ist. Vom Klima her auch und von der extremen Höhe.
Of course, Segantini wasn't the only artist drawn to the region. Others, such as German philosopher Friedrich Nietzsche, who lived here for 7 summers, equally cherished the entrancing mountain scenery. Many of them remarked on the magical light that touches the mountains, especially during sunset. But even with the sun gone, the mountains lose nothing of their visual appeal. The next day, we set out on foot to explore some of the walking trails near St. Moritz. Equipped with a hot coffee, we enjoyed the crisp mountain air and the warming sunshine. Before long, we arrived at the outskirts of the town, which is of course scenically framed by mountains. Back at the hotel, we had a light lunch on the sunny terrace in preparation of our first winter sport activity. After we had successfully put on the shoes, we set out towards the ski track. As it was our first time on cross-country skis, our guide Fabio started the lesson by explaining the 2 different styles called Classic and Skating to us.
Okay, also beim klassischen Ski ist es so, es hat einen Fell. Und das ist der große Unterschied zwischen klassisch und Skating ist, dass man mit dem Fell arbeiten muss, damit man so in der Schiene sich fortbewegen kann. Das heißt eigentlich, wenn man nachher auf den Ski steht und sich so abstoßen will, dann muss man so das ganze Gewicht hier drauf halten, in dem Sinne, der ganze Körper schwebt. Ja. In dem Moment, wo man abdrückt, kann man so einen Schritt nach vorne machen. Das kommt man so dann leicht ins Gleiten. Mit Skating-Ski ist es so, dass wir eben keinen Fell haben. Ja. Das heißt, wir haben wirklich einen glatten Belag von vorne bis hinten. Und das ist auch die Idee. Hier stoßen wir nicht mit einem stehenden Bein uns ab, sondern wir haben das gleitende Bein und stoßen nachher mit der Innenkante, setzen wir nachher den nächsten Schritt auf in dem Sinne. Also wir haben eigentlich einen diagonalen Schlittschuhschritt zur Seite raus und nicht so nach vorne. Ja.
Putting our theoretical knowledge to use, we set off towards one of the frozen lakes, where we proceeded to hone our rudimentary skills. Blessed with endless patience, Fabio continued to teach us how to improve our techniques, which for me mostly meant trying not to fall over. Grantedly, both of us looked like newborn giraffes on skis. However, we slowly started to get the hang of it. We continued to ski back and forth all afternoon, being distracted by the mountain vistas more than once. If done correctly, cross-country skiing is a very healthy sport, as it is easy on the joints, burns plenty of calories, and activates almost all muscle groups.
It is always very humbling learning something that you've never done before. And even though I've been snowboarding and downhill skiing, I've never been cross-country skiing before. So I fell plenty of times, but nonetheless this was a lot of fun and I'm ready to do it again in the future.
As temperatures plummeted to minus 15 degrees Celsius most nights, it became our early morning ritual to free the windshield of ice. With the sun back in full force, we decided to do something we hadn't done in years: going sledding. Instead of walking up a small hill, however, we took the cable car to Morteratsch, a mountain overlooking the Engadin at no less than 2,500 meters. Once at the top, we slowly made our way to the start of the trail.
Oh God.
This isn't just any kind of sleigh riding. This is Schlitteln. And when going Schlitteln, you wear protection.
At first, we took things slowly, trying to get used to steering our sleds and most importantly, learning how to brake. Soon, however, we got more confident and started to gain speed on our way downhill. With a length of 4.2 kilometers, this sled trail covers an altitude drop of more than 700 meters over the course of 20 narrow turns. Even though the view was stunning, we were way too distracted by having fun. After more than 20 minutes of adrenaline-infused joy, we arrived at the end of the trail. Unluckily, Anna was hit by a sudden wave of migraine and had to skip our second run.
Oh, this is so much fun. Oh my God, feeling like a child again. But it's just such good fun. All right, let's go on.
With Anna still handicapped from her headache, it was only me joining our snowshoe hike in the afternoon. Together with my guide Marco, I set off on the trail. As we made our way through the beautiful forest, we were engulfed in silence, as there was no other sound than the rhythmic trot of our snowshoes. Before long, we reached tree line and the scenery started to change. Heading around a little outcrop, a magnificent vista opened up in front of us. Shadows starting to get longer, we decided it was time to head down again. Following a different route, we walked along the sunny mountain slope until a quaint village came into sight. In the past, the settlement of Grevasalvas was the summer abode of cattle farmers who let their animals graze the alpine pastures between May and September. Today, the houses are mostly rented out to holidaymakers during summer, while the village goes into hibernation in winter. Continuing down the mountain, Marco had one more surprise for me. While we had been out snowshoeing, his lovely colleagues had set up a picnic in the most romantic spot ever. Overlooking Lake Sills towards the waning sun, this cozy setting was made of dreams.
You picked a really bad day to have a migraine. I know you would have loved this experience above everything else, so I will try to enjoy it for the both of us.
While I sat there and marveled at the view, the sun was painting the landscape in intense colors. blink of an eye, the last light was gone, leaving me with cherished memories of a special sunset. Well rested, we were the first at the breakfast buffet the next morning. In anticipation of our day's sportive activities, we did not hold back, fueling our bodies with plenty of food. Having made it to the nearby village of Pontresina, we put on the safety harnesses we would need for our icy canyoning adventure. Following a short walk through town, we arrived at a hidden gorge where we started with a safety briefing.
Das ist wichtig, dass wir eigentlich immer gesichert sind. Das heisst, wir haben 2 so Karabiner und die kann man so zurückziehen. Ja. Ja. So. Und dann kann man loslassen und dann ist zu. So ist zu. Einfach zurückziehen zum Öffnen. So rein. Und der zweite auch so rein. Und dann gehen wir so sind wir immer schön gesichert. Wenn wir mal, es geht ja zum Teil schon ein paar Meter runter und ist eng und wird das schon sehen.
After a quick training session, we put on our crampons and started to head into the canyon. Just around the corner, we came upon the first of many zip lines, and our excitement started to grow. Following our guide Christian deeper into the gorge, we were blown away by the scenery around us. On our way, we spotted countless icicles, emerald pools of water, and majestically frozen waterfalls. In the few moments we were not spellbound, we climbed deeper into the gorge, often changing from side to side either by zipline or wooden boards. With each further zipline, we started to get more confident, flying joyously across the semi-frozen river.
Without a doubt, this has to be one of the coolest experiences we've done in a long time. This combines hiking with climbing and with flying foxes and everything set in this beautiful canyon with these magnificent waterfalls. Of course it's cold, but the adrenaline kick is just amazing and we are really having a blast here.
As we neared the end of the canyon, there was one last steep part to conquer. Luckily, our icy adventure wasn't over yet, as I also wanted to test my skills as an ice climber. After Christian had prepared the rope at the top, we headed to the start of the climb. First, we needed to secure me via a climbing knot. As soon as all the safety measures were taken care of, I was ready to go. Equipped with climbing irons and ice axes, I tackled the icy wall. Even though ice climbing seems quite easy as an onlooker, it is rather tough work. Driven by the ambition to make it to the top, I pushed on and soon reached the sunny bit of the wall. Frequently shaking out my arms, I continued to climb up until reaching the proverbial summit.
This is the best part of any climb. It's the jumping down, which is the most fun. Woo!
After many hours spent surrounded by ice, we decided to treat ourselves to some warmth. Heading to Giardino Spa, we hopped into the heated pool and let ourselves be embraced by the warm water. To ease our tired muscles, we also enjoyed this bubble massage. Needless to say, we could not leave the spa without going for a sauna session either. The next morning we were both astonished and delighted to find the sunshine replaced by some light snowfall. Granting ourselves a break from all the adventure sports, we decided to explore the surrounding area. Our first stop was the Morteratsch Valley, which can easily be discovered on a leisurely stroll.
A changing global climate is nothing unusual at all. As a matter of fact, this entire area was covered under a 1 kilometer thick ice shield just 20,000 years ago. However, in the last 200 years, temperatures have risen so much that glaciers all around the world have started to shrink dramatically.
One such example is the Morteratsch Glacier, which has lost around 3 kilometers in the last 160 years. Following a scenic walking trail through the valley, we came upon frequent markers which are a solemn reminder of the former magnitude of the glacier. While the sun illuminated the snowflakes, we continued our walk towards the glacier tongue. Despite its massive losses, the Morteratsch Glacier is still around 6 kilometers long, and as such, the third longest glacier in the Eastern Alps. During winter, most of it is covered by a blanket of snow, and the shimmering blue ice can only be seen partially. We came upon some kite surfers that made use of the high winds on the mountain plateau. Needless to say, we couldn't pass up the chance to drive down another switchback road, so we soon found ourselves heading down the Bernina Pass into the Poschiavo Valley. Interestingly, with crossing the pass, all place names changed to Italian, as Val Poschiavo is part of Italian-speaking Switzerland. True to the Italian spirit, the formerly grey clouds were immediately replaced by sunshine. Having marveled at the view for almost an hour, we decided it was time to drive up again. With an elevation of 2,330 meters, the Bernina Pass is covered by snow around 8 months of the year. At the hotel, we cozied up next to the fireplace in the lounge, preparing ourselves for the adventures to come. Of course, no winter holiday in Switzerland would be complete without hitting the ski slopes at least once, which is why we visited the ski resort Corviglia the next day. Taking a total of 3 gondolas, we quickly left St. Moritz behind and headed towards the summit of Piz Nair.
I am really giddy. This is the first time in 3 years that I'll be back on a snowboard, and I'm really looking forward to hit the slopes today.
Braving the adverse conditions, I headed out on my first run. As I had never ridden at Corviglia before, I frequently needed to consult the map so I wouldn't get lost.
Today is a bit of an unusual day here in St. Moritz for the simple fact that it's not sunny, as it is usually sunny around 320 days a year. However, today we have a heavy cloud cover and rather strong winds and snowfall at the top of the mountain, which poses some challenges, so visibility is poor. However, it is really a lot of fun to be back on the board, and I'm slowly starting to get the hang of it again.
A definite plus of the mediocre weather was that boarding a lift was only a matter of seconds. The downside was that I could barely make out the otherwise stunning mountains surrounding the slopes. Unperturbed, I kept on riding until it was time to meet for lunch at Piz Nair again. After having feasted on some homemade gnocchi, I headed out once more. Stunningly, as the afternoon progressed, the cloud cover started to open up, and we caught a glimpse of the magnificent scenery from the summit. Culinarily, there is one dish synonymous with Switzerland: cheese fondue. But instead of just eating one, we decided to learn how to make one with Giardino's executive chef Florian Schwarz.
I have already organized and prepared the ingredients. The main ingredients is the cheese. This is a cheese mix. It's a mix of Gruyère, Vacherin, Bergkäse and raclette cheese. Then we need white wine, we need some garlic, we need a little bit nutmeg and cornstarch, and the best part of all is the Kirsch nuts, like we say, cherry liquor, to round up everything at the end. Okay, so first step for the cheese fondue is we need to mix our cheese mix, what we have. We put it in a bowl, and then we add 2 tablespoons of cornstarch.
Just to thicken it up, right?
Yeah, at the end when we start cooking the cheese, that will help us that the cheese is getting smooth and not getting separated while cooking. So that's pretty much all what we need to do. And then we are going over to the stove and we start cooking. First thing what we do, we take the 1/2 of the cloth and we start rubbing the pot with the cloth. Now we add the cheese, we add the wine. Okay, and then we go over this pot and with medium heat we start heating it slowly up. That's gonna take 5 to 10 minutes. We need to keep it boiling for a couple of minutes because we want to have the cornstarch having his effect by binding the cheese, and also by cooking it you're losing that flavor, that cornstarch flavor.
Okay.
Yeah. We spice it up with a little bit nutmeg. And then at the end, just a couple drops of the Kirschwasser.
Wow.
So, and now we have to transfer this right to our little stove on the table. And we have to keep the cheese cooking.
Yeah.
Yeah, or at least being on temperature.
Right.
Otherwise it would start separating. And that's it. Wow. So I think we are ready to serve.
And serving we did. Meeting up in the cozy Stuva restaurant with its rustic wooden paneling, we sat down to enjoy this traditional Swiss dish.
So what you're gonna do is, we have here the bread. That's the typical fondue bread. You can see there are some little cubes,
right,
and it makes it easier to break them.
Nice.
Yeah. So you can break this in part. If you don't have this kind of bread, baguette or whatever kind of bread you want, cut it in cubes about this size. Don't make it too small. And then the only thing you do is you squeeze it here on your fork, and then you go into the pot, and like we said before, you keep moving. Yeah.
Of course, other than bread, you can also dip potatoes, corn, pickles or whatever else you like into the fondue. Chatting all evening, we especially enjoyed the social character of sharing the dish. Fueled by all the cheese, we visited the Olympia Bob Run St. Moritz Celerina the following day.
Die Malemanns ist gestartet, Vorsicht an der Bahn. Skeleton, Vorsicht an der Bahn. Die Malemanns gestartet mit 5.
First built in 1904, this Bob Run is the oldest ice track in the world. Stunningly, it is the only natural Bob Run globally, which is manually constructed by track builders from South Tyrol each winter. Using only water and snow, the track is molded without the help of chemicals, reaching a total length of 1,722 meters. Needless to say, the Bob Run looks back on a long list of high-level competitions, among others hosting the Winter Olympics in 1928 and 1948. To learn more about the sports performed on the track, we had the pleasure to chat with Gregor Stähli, 3-time skeleton world champion and general manager of the Olympia Bob Run.
Well, which kind of sports are actually done here? So there's bobsleigh, but what else is there?
Correct, it's bobsleigh, skeleton and luge.
Bobsleigh, maybe you know, sitting in the sled, 2 men and 4 men, so 2 disciplines. Skeleton is laying on your stomach head first, and luge is the opposite. You lay on your back and feet first.
As a former professional, can you describe the feeling of going down?
Of course, it's the speed. The speed is very impressive, but the most impressive thing is to control the sled under these circumstances very fast, one corner after the other. And you need to find the right lines. It's about 150 steering points for one run, so you need to be very concentrated and focused. That's the most important thing. And if you succeed to have such a great run, maybe in an important race, and all the steering points are correct, it ends up in a very good finish time, and this is what is so exciting as athlete.
Do you need to have like certain physical attributes? Like, do you need to be strong and fit, very fit?
Yes, yes. You need to be a sprinter.
Okay.
You need to be fast at the start. This is one of the components which are very important. In skeleton, where the slide is not that heavy, between 30 and 40 kilos. I mean, it's heavy too, but not so heavy like bobsleigh. There it's enough to be very fast. Okay. So you can be a normal sprinter like me, 75 kilos is enough. But to push against the heavy bobsleigh, which has maybe 200 kilos, you need to be also strong and heavy.
Aside from all the records it holds, the Olympia Bob Run is also extraordinary for another reason, as visitors have the chance to join a real-world bobsleigh ride. Of course, we did not need to be asked twice to race down a bob track. After putting on a mask and selecting a fitting helmet, we were paired up with 2 professionals who would steer and brake the bobsleigh.
Schulter mit links, Schulter für aufrecht sitzt. Okay. Nicht nach hinten oder nach vorne. Okay. Aufrecht möglichst Rumpfspannung. Ja. Dann könnt ihr euch ein bisschen breit machen mit den Armen, damit es nicht so schüttelt. Und dann links und rechts rausschauen, wie ihr möchtet. Genießt die Fahrt, es geht sehr schnell vorbei. Ja, das darf man.
And then we set out on the track, experiencing the most adrenaline-inducing 70 seconds of our lives.
Der Viererbob ist gestartet. Durch die Startlinie dem ersten Anlehner entgegen. Wir nähern uns dem zweiten Anlehner. Und die Fahrt nimmt an Geschwindigkeit zu. Wir nähern uns dem Wall. Wall, das heißt die Wand. Und hier, durch den Wall. In den Snake. Snake 1 und Snake 2. Und nun folgt der Sunny Corner. Durch den Sunny Corner durch. Nash Dixon Corner, so benannt nach den britischen Weltmeistern Anthony Nash und Robin Dixon. Mit 95 Stundenkilometer geht's in den Horseshoe, durch den Horseshoe. Telephone Corner, Shamrock, Devil's Dyke, Nameless, Tree, Bridge Corner, Unterführung der Rätischen Bahn, Leap, Gunter Sachs Corner, Zielschuss mit 130 Stundenkilometer geht sie den Martino Corner. Portago Corner, so heißt die Auslaufkurve, Ziellinie und es geht hinauf in Richtung Rampe. Und wir gratulieren recht herzlich diesem Team für die tolle Fahrt.
If you've ever been to a theme park and ridden a roller coaster, it's absolutely nothing compared to a bobsleigh track. I seriously thought I was going to faint on the way down as the forces were so intense. But we made it. Now we're gonna get our certificate.
To bring down our heartbeats back to normal, we decided to have a relaxed lunch on the outdoor terrace.
Alles gut, ihr Lieben? Alles super. Sehr schön. Allora, das Risotto ist für dich, ne? Okay.
Later on, we talked to Giardino's chief concierge Claudio to get some further tips on exploring the surrounding area.
Because there are so nice places around here. I mean, there is one valley I really adore. It's the Val Fex. It's not far from here. It's about 15 minutes from here. You can have a horse carriage, you can walk, you can hike. It's just, for me, it's just paradise. It's just at the end of the world, but the atmosphere is just unique.
The next day, we decided to put Claudio's assessment to the test. Hopping on a horse carriage in the village of Sils, we headed towards Val Fex. Along the way, we passed through an enchanting forest and several small hamlets. It did not take long until the trees were replaced by snow-covered alpine meadows with the towering mountain peaks looming ahead. Back in the 70s, the local community decided to close off the road for most vehicle traffic. This rule is still in place today, which meant that we encountered more hikers and carriages than cars. First inhabited more than 500 years ago, the residents of Val Fex were well known for trading extensively with their Italian neighbors.
Und da war oft ein Tausch, dass man gehandelt hat. Sie haben von unten Weizen und eben die tropischen Sachen rauf ins Engadin hier raufgeführt und haben dann das Fleisch wieder mit runtergenommen. Und weil hier im Fextal hier oben wurde eben nicht so viel kontrolliert wegen dem Grenzschutz und alles, darum sind früher viele Schmuggler hier das Fextal rauf und runter gegangen, ja, Geld zu sparen.
Around 45 minutes after we had set out, we arrived at the end of the road, where we said farewell to the horses. Even though we had done little to earn it, we sat down for a hearty lunch, trying another popular Swiss dish called Rösti, a pan-fried patty made from grated potatoes.
If you're looking for a place to wind down in the mountains, the hotel and restaurant Fex is the perfect destination. Surrounded by high mountain peaks, glaciers and waterfalls, this is a place to enjoy the tranquility of the mountains while going on a leisurely hike once in a while.
And going for a leisurely hike we did. Following a walking trail that led deeper into the valley, we were once more blown away by the magnificent grandeur of the landscape surrounding us. Walking down towards Sils again, we decided to scientifically test the depth of the snow before continuing along the beautiful trail through the forest. Following a tradition of ours, we ordered room service for our last night at Giardino.
That means I have more time for work. My guide is...
Luckily, our trip wasn't quite over yet. Following the Inn River north, we headed towards the Lower Engadin. Before arriving there, however, we noticed that the trees along the road were spectacularly beautiful, as they were covered in delicate ice structures. Referred to as hoarfrost, this natural phenomenon happens when water vapor is sublimated directly from the air in temperatures below -8 degrees Celsius. Chemical reasonings aside, the fragile ice crystals were stunning to look at. Meanwhile, the almost translucent Inn River flowed past us, carrying numerous little ice shoals downstream. Running in parallel to the river, the 2.5 kilometer long Madeleine ice trail is set in a picturesque alluvial landscape. Graded every evening, the natural ice track invites young and old to cruise along on skates.
No matter if summer or winter, the Engadin is truly a paradise for outdoor sports enthusiasts, as there is so much more to do than just going downhill skiing. You can go ice skating, snowshoeing, biking, cross-country skiing, ice climbing. The choice is really yours.
Leaving the Upper Engadin behind, we continue to head north, passing several mountain villages along the way.
We are currently driving through the only national park of Switzerland, which goes by the somewhat unimaginative name of Swiss National Park. However, during winter the entire park is closed off, including all its hiking trails, so the only option is to drive through it, which nonetheless is extremely beautiful.
Founded in 1914, the Swiss National Park is one of the oldest reserves in Europe. Taking the protection of nature very seriously, the ultimate goal of the park is to allow the local flora and fauna to develop without the interference of humans. The only exception to that rule is the Pass road, which leads through the park, connecting the Engadin to Val Steir. Heading up the Pass the next day again, the drive on the scenic mountain roads was an absolute delight. Soon after crossing the pass, we arrived on a plateau of immense beauty, with high mountain peaks towering above us.
What a drama! Yesterday we were taking pictures at one of the beautiful lookouts close to the national park, and Anna left her phone on the bonnet, which naturally must have flown off after a couple of meters. But luckily someone was nice enough to hand it over to the local police, and Anna is now just going to pick it up. So thank you very much to whoever picked it up and handed it over.
Oh no, don't film me.
Film me?
I got it! And it's whole. It works.
We spent our last day in Switzerland catching a glimpse of the Lower Engadin, which in our opinion is just as beautiful as its upper counterpart. Along our way we passed the hamlet of Guarda and drove through the village of Ardez, both equally charming mountain settlements. Towering above Ardez, the Steinsberg Castle is a very prominent building in the Lower Engadin. Just a couple kilometers down the road, Tarasp Castle is in no way inferior. And then, after 12 days of adrenaline-fueled action sports and mountain-inspired tranquility, we left Switzerland where the Inn meets Austria. Fully aware that we barely scratched the surface of what the country has to offer, we are certain that Switzerland hasn't seen the last of us. Between inhaling the fresh mountain air and experiencing unforgettable adventures, we came to agree with German writer Thomas Mann, who once said, "This Engadin is the most beautiful place in the world. Not easily do I speak of happiness, but I almost think I am happy here."